Hello, welcome to the presentation for Courageous Conversations, the workshop that was organized um, in 2015, a few weeks ago. And this is the English version of, the reference material that I present for deepening whatever happened in that 1.5 hour in a conversation in the group. To give you some language to read, some images to remember, and some practices to work through. Basically, as I said, it's reference material, and it's about creating a big mindset, a mindset that is sometimes not too clear. Courageous Conversations and the whole workshop that I present here is not about some skill set. It's really about a mindset, and it supports and clarifies the context that I use for this. And by doing so, this is material that you might be using in the next couple of weeks or whenever you find appropriate to spend time on deepening what it is to have courageous conversations. Clarify some context around this. This is all part of the T-Spirit campaign. And T-Spirit campaign is about, as far as I can see it, totally aligns with how I think that organizations could be spending more time on not just the effectiveness of how things work or the effectivity on how things work, but more on essential underlying dynamics such as conversations. This is a foundation, and therefore this presentation and the workshop is a tool for organizational development, for cooperation, and the use and the joining of potential of people, and also for individual fulfillment. All focused on, that's my take, by being attentive to the inner and mutual and the collective conversations. It's meant for everybody. Everybody inside an organization, in this case your organization, is invited to stand still, and to ask themselves, what is a courageous conversation? How do I have them? What do I need to speak? What do I withhold? What do I need from others to express myself? What do I need from the organization to have it expressed? So therefore, this is for everybody. It's also a initiation, a start for those who lead people, who actually, as far as I'm concerned, people who are leading teams, leading people. Not many people have in their job description that one of the major tasks is to lead and to facilitate or to initiate or give boundaries and circumstances for courageous conversations, while in practice, most of the people who lead people recognize that that is their main task. How do I lead that conversation in my department, in my team? So it is for everybody. It's for the people in leading positions. And in a big company like yours, it also requires a commitment from the top management, in your case the exco, because they curate and determine the culture. They hold and also need to demonstrate and also make explicit the collective conversation as being part of the way of doing business. One of the possible results coming out of this 1.5 hour, or in the case of just listening to this presentation, the insights that you can gain, it's more. It is about getting more appreciation for yourself, for the corporation, and for whatever is in the company, or to walk away from it. That's a very blunt statement. If you have done everything to find yourself at home, and circumstances or people just don't cooperate with that, and it's not aligned, it is one of the options to leave. Till that time, it is time for you and this this presentation also gives you the possibilities to have the courageous conversations, to influence your circumstances or the people. It's about what your vision is instead of opinion. So there will be more in the company, more vision speaking, and more specifics than talking in opinion. There's more conversation instead of speeches or talks. There's more feedback instead of discussions, more space for creativity, learning, and movability. There's a higher, what I call, touchability. You can be touched by circumstances, by people, and also that you can touch people in ways that are fruitful, that are nourishing and supportive to the process or to that person. Eventually, it all comes down to, as far as how I can see that people get more awareness and grip on increasing their vitality, pleasure, and the sense of purpose. 3 big ingredients that, as far as I'm concerned, determine how people experience their work and life, for that matter. Before we step into the workshop, we made a vow, because also in this workshop it is a demonstration in itself of learning. And what do you need for learning? What do you need for opening up and asking questions to get answers or to find answers yourself? Is that there is an environment where you are willing to step in and say, I don't know, or I feel a little uneasy and I'm still stepping in. One of the things that is needed is that needs to be a promise to be made to create circumstances for learning. And I promise to only speak outside of this room about what happens here if it honors or supports that person. And in the workshops, we all raised our hand to make that vow, and then the vow, this promise, became an agreement. And that agreement is one of the basic ingredients that I believe is missing currently in the workspace. That leaders of teams don't make these agreements. As a consequence of which, there is still a lot of uncertainty how you all deal with one another, and how one person finds himself or herself in circumstances where they're not secure. This promise is an example, one ingredient to look into. How do you make your working environment a safe place for and producing, feeling welcome, and learning, and also a place for not so much making mistakes on one hand, but also celebrating success. So a courageous conversation. Well, I ask you, what is your definition? What is your definition of a courageous conversation? And you might want to take a pen or your iPad out. What is your definition? Because your definition determines how you look at the phenomena. In this case, the courageous conversation. What is a courageous conversation? The next question is, what concrete examples do you have? Do you know? Where do you sense that a courageous conversation is needed? And if you look back, when did you have a courageous conversation? If you look back, and what were the ingredients of happening? Why did you not have them yet? And what is stopping you? And what do you need? Those are questions that will be continuing under this whole presentation. In the presentation, I'll go into what is conversation. I will say something about what hardwerken is, what eigenheid, essence is, and the role of that, what fruitful discomfort is, what courage is, what the inner conversation is, and I give you 4 exercises to work with. And it's not so much that I say this is it. This is just my view on what it is to live a fulfilled life and what it is to have courageous conversation to lead up to such a fulfilling life. To me, the content of a courageous conversation can be about expressing irritation, in Dutch jeuk, but also leuk, also the nice things. If you don't express irritations, it becomes bigger, and if you don't express that, it becomes a break of the relationship. In Dutch, it's if you don't express your jeuk, als je je jeuk niet uitspreekt, it becomes a deuk. En als je je deuk niet uitspreekt, wordt het een breuk. Hetzelfde voor leuk. Sorry about the English missing here. Als je iets leuks niet uitspreekt, wordt het ook een deuk. En dan wordt het ook een breuk. The content of a courageous conversation, to me, is expressing irritation. It's about setting boundaries, saying no. It's also about bringing up a new idea. It's about saying yes, it's about saying no, and it's about expressing appreciation for whatever is obvious or whatever happens as something to be grateful of. I'll just give you my take on what the power of conversation is. To me, each result comes from actions, it says, and I mean, it's not rocket science. Every result comes from actions, and every action comes from a conversation. And that will be a mutual if you have been working together, but at least an inner conversation. So if you want to change the results, try to pay attention to the inner conversation of people. That's what we're doing here. Another thing is leading people is leading conversations. So this is a workshop that is for, like I said, for everybody individually, but also for those who are leading people. And in the bigger picture, working together is rooted in conversation. We tend to use the word culture a lot. I believe that culture is too vague of a word. The word is too vague. I think the word conversation is way more accurate. Who has been saying it? Is it unsaid or said? Is it still applicable? Was the one having or speaking it, was that the person who is in the right authority to do so? So that's so much about the power of conversation. I'll zoom out a little bit. Like I said earlier, there is a lot of attention to working, especially the content, and about the effectiveness and the effectivity of how we work together. In this diagram, in this drawing, you see that I divided up in three areas. There is the efficiency part. That's where your agile comes in, and there is the hard, the effectivity part. As far as I'm concerned, around 80% of the conversations that we have on the workplace or that we have with ourselves about work is about those two. And I think we all recognize what it is to have these conversations. There is also another part. So what is the other 20%? I call it hard werken. And that's about the core issues, about the essence, about the eigenheid in Dutch. So I ask you, if you just recognize for yourself, what is the percentage of your attention goes to those areas? Just divide it up into those three. And just to get some clarity around it, what are the topics in each area? And where and when do these conversations take place? And what do you need to influence the percentage? This in itself, this conversation, enables you to create a place for initiatives like your Team Spirit initiative. Because a lot of people think that it's about, Team Spirit is about vague or whatever stuff. I hope with this clarification you are able to give a proper place to those conversations that are taking place there. To me, so this is, if you want to do that exercise, you might want to press pause now. I thought about what hard work is, obviously. To me, it's about the values and vision and mission. It's about the talent and character. It's about the experiencing side of us. It's about our senses, our thoughts, our bodily experiences. It's about values. It's about relevance. It's about purpose and meaning. And that's both on the individual level or also in a collective level. You can identify those issues. Basically, it's everything in the underlying dynamic that influence the effectivity and the effectiveness. In another way, I like to look at things in layers. If you see the layer of, there's a lot of attention in how things are being done or what we need to do. It's about the content and the form, the processes. What do I need to do and how do I do it? That's sort of the very functional conversation that we tend to have, and that's fine. I mean, if you all know what it's all about, and here I already tap into the underlying dynamic. What is at the essence? What is the underlying dynamic for our working together? And there we ask different questions. There we go into what we experience. There we go into the value and the purposes. There we ask questions as not so much why as an explaining word, but why. What is the purpose? Where does this go to? What contribution are we making? For who is it for? What is the value that we're creating? And also, what do we experience? So this whole underlying dynamic, that's what we do here. I guide you to have conversations more from that place, beyond the how and the what. So this will be a conversation between two people. You can talk about the how and the what, and how do we need to do it, and you exchange. Exchanging on the underlying dynamic, the essential level, is a way more rich, but also a daring conversation to have. Mostly we have to shift the conversation. We have to interrupt meetings, say, hey, people, I don't know about you guys, but this is what I'm experiencing when we keep on doing like this. Funny enough, you're not the only one, mostly raising your hand doing so. It could well be that you're the first one to do so, raising your hand, questioning the purpose, or whatever is happening there. So this is about two people, this diagram. This is one person on the left, one person on the right. And this is just exchanging. But what if they join together? They get a bigger dynamic. They get a communality. They get an importance that they share and a purpose that they share. And from that, and also from who they are as an individual, in joining forces, they create an underlying dynamic from which the what and the how arises. If you rotate this diagram, you get to this place, which is basically the foundation of invitational leadership, the context that I work from. This is about working together, where one person, I, invites another person to work together, to create a joint activity in order to deliver something to the future, to society, or to them. So the context of invitation leadership is about one person that aims at a certain future state or goal, it or them, and invites others and other to join in cooperation. This style is both directive and asking. So this is not about coaching and all. This is everything. You just have to be really diverse and very directive in what you what you stand for, what you want, and be totally open to what the outside world is offering you as context, as possibilities for working together, and also as possibilities of the other person, who he is, who she is. You see underneath here, you see uitspreken, afspreken, aanspreken in Dutch. It's expressing what each person wants, what they stand for, to really speak in the I. This is me. In the we zone, so to speak, there is an agreement. That's where promises and requests become a agreement. Then there is the action, and then there is the addressing. There's the addressing of the desired results and behavior, or the undesired results and behavior. And this is a whole process, and this is the underlying process under our actions. And there is always an internal conversation going. So again, this is it's attention to the how and the what, enriched by the underlying dynamic. The underlying dynamic of a courageous conversation, we all recognize it as something that is, try to imagine yourself standing up. The courageous conversation is where our values and the importance and relevance is pushing us forward. That's from our back. Also the purpose, the foreseen future, pulls us. It is actually the experience, how we are in the moment, that stops us or that lets us go. So let's zoom into that, because that's a very internal dynamic. This is what determines our movement, to have the conversations or not. It's about where our fears or our drivers speak very clearly to us. It could be our fears of stepping into, that we are rejected, or, well, try to come up with your own fears. What are your fears of not stepping into? There is also another element that could be that we have assumptions about the reactions of the other person. Yeah, but they, yeah, but he. And there is a third, it could be our fear about our reaction to their reaction. So let's zoom into what happens there. One standpoint is that everybody has a very unique inner experience. It's undeniable. If a person says, well, I've got the sweat on my back on this one, that's true. Nobody can say, no, that's not true. Or if people say, well, I have the feeling such and such, there's no way that another person can deny that. So the key to a courageous conversation is to address what your experience is. Not the content, not the processes. Maybe they're relevant and importance and values, but the core key at the foundations of courageous conversations is expressing your experience. And that happens inside us. It happens totally inside us, and it happens where we meet what is not us. So there is a me and there is a not me. And on that threshold, that's where the courageous conversation takes place. That's where the courageous conversation is called for. First, there is the inner conversation. The inner conversation is in our head, with all kind of thoughts and ideas and images and questions. Then there is also the feelings and emotions, pleasure, anger, fear. And there is physical senses, temperature and tension. And mind you, the physical senses are the ones that are very, very dominant, actually. And we have been training ourselves and each other to not allow physical experiences to occur. Well, they do occur, but to not allow them to be open about it. For instance, a courageous conversation. If mostly your temperature rises or your heartbeat rises. Don't we all recognize that? Or you start to blush. That's another one. So here we are at a very human aspect of a courageous conversation, our bodily experiences, and learning to listen to that and daring to express it in words to the outside world is actually key to the whole phenomena here. So physical senses are very relevant to talk about, give words to the inner experience. Also for feelings, same thing. If you express your own feelings about, so that would not be expressing your anger towards, but to express your anger about something, your anger inside. You feel angry about something. Then the third area, which is kind of harder, our head. That's where there we actually, excuse language, it all screws up. That's where it goes wrong. And I'd like to zoom in a little more here. So what is that inner conversation in our head that takes place? Well, to begin with, I believe that the head is very, it steers us, it very much directs our actions. And to me, basically, there's two movements. It's either we step in or we step out. We step into a contact with another person, or we step out of it. We step into the world or we step out. We are a spectator or we are the participant. And the movements itself are not the prime thing to pay attention to. It's what the source is. Do you want to do it from, you want to make that movements from contact and conversation, or you want to make them from fear? Well, to find access to what I just asked, because basically there was a question, to learn to listen to your inner conversation. I've written down some words to listen closely to yourself. On the right, you see the authentic, very factual, experiencing, expressing the importance and relevance side of us. It's about value and vision, and it's a very vulnerable way of speaking. Is actually speaking from the inner world to the outside, and it's your inner voice, and it feels uncomfortable, not always unpleasant, but it feels uncomfortable. Also, expressing appreciation to somebody can feel very uneasy, yet it's a very constructive way of conversing with somebody else. Same thing for offering corrective feedback. So try to recognize the right hand side of this, well, I wouldn't want to call it a model, but a scheme. It's a very confronting way, an invitational way of speaking. It's about speaking about a game and the rules. It's very inquisitive, inquiring into whatever happens. It's also very basic. I mean, if somebody gets hurt, they say "ow," and if something happens very pleasantly, people say "wow," just for the alliteration of it. So this is the "ow" and the wow side. It's the courageous, touchable side. It's a very, and let's look at the image. It's multicolor, multi-sound. The other side is a very conditioned side of us. It's where we actually made a decision that it is so. It's this is mostly very rational mindset that we have. It's about right and wrong. We talk about this is right and this is wrong. It's about being polite, not telling the truth. The truth is on the right hand side here. Now just say, yeah, well, I'm fine, and turning away and say, well, definitely not. So this is a very polite and impolite. This is the tears of a clown side. It's about opinion and discussion. It's about winning and discussion. It's about the very basic um, reactions to fear. I mean, on the right hand side, we in the moment might turn away from something and from fear and flee and freeze and whatever. On the left hand side, we created it as a mask, as a uniform around ourself to protect us from something. It's very conditional. This is what the Buddhists call the language of the monkey mind, the strategic mind that we have, which basically says if, then, else. It's not vulnerable. It's about that we must do stuff. It's very righteous, black and white, very dualistic, out of touch, out of conversation, while the other side is in touch and in conversation. I pause for a moment here. All our experience show up in different terrains. So what I like to present is that you learn to recognize the terrains that you're in. One can be in total comfort and suddenly there is discomfort. One can be in totally comfort and suddenly there is danger. And that determines how we experience life. So we zoom into that phenomena of where you, I think, need to get more understanding of what kind of terrain you are and to speak the proper language from your perspective and your experience. I distinguish three zones. One is the zone of comfort. And we all have images around that. What is our comfort zone? Our comfort zone is being left when we enter the discomfort zone. That can be because of an impulse from the outside, and it can also be discomfort can also be coming from the inside. Laying on a nice beach for hours and hours can just stir up an internal discourse and discomfort. The misunderstanding, however, is that we sometimes say that discomfort is also unsafe, while I say that both comfort and discomfort are safe. And what I mean by safe is that you still feel in touch with whatever happens and you're in conversation with it. Once you step out of it, you're in a danger zone and you start to flee, fight, or freeze. If I put it in a scheme, it would look like this. It does look like this. There is a comfort zone, a discomfort zone, and a danger zone. And this is a totally individualistic discovery of the terrain. You have to find your own language from the experience in all these zones, using this model as the comfort and discomfort both being safe and the danger being unsafe. If you learn to speak this language as clearly as you can, again, nobody's going to deny where you are, and they will understand where you are. And they better pay attention to where you are. So let people know where you are and what kind of terrain and how you feel in that terrain. So how does each terrain show up for you, and what images and situations come up? What is your experience in that situation? And describe it. And this is basically where you have the inner world being expressed under the circumstances given in such a way that people can see who you are, what you are all about, and where you are, and how you are being a total human being, vulnerable or touchable, better word, in life. Well, this brings me to this build-up brings me to it's a list of points of, or elements actually, elements for a courageous conversation. Whatever kind of courageous conversation you can think of, whatever has been said till now is being summed up here. And a courageous conversation, whether it's a correctional or a boundary issue, or expressing a value, appreciation, or a new idea, you might be able to use these bullet points here. Being very factual, express your experience, describing the impact, describing the relevance and importance, describe and name the purpose, describe what you need, and describe the action that you foresee. And it's not about just I, it's about you, it's about the context, it's about we, and it's about to whom we are delivering, to whom we are working. So it's multi-dimensional. Courageous conversation is multi-dimensional. So you might want to use this if you want to prepare for a courageous conversation in the very near future. Just use this as a roadmap. If you have not said these things to yourself, you probably end up in explanations and discussions. So stay factual and stay visible, and see it as a conversation, as an invitation to another person to respond. Wait for the response. I give you some exercises. You probably have your own topics about an idea, an irritation, or a boundary issue. I give you some conversations to have yourself. One is about your fulfillment, your potential, about the purpose for working and giving feedback. And the role meant, as it said there, to initiate and have the courageous conversation. So the first practice is just sit and write down for yourself, what is your sense of purpose that you have at the moment in your work? What is the sense of pleasure? And what's the sense of vitality? Give a percentage to each of these. So each can have 100%. Rarely seen, actually. Plus give an explanation, because that gives the inner language, that gives the story to your percentage. You can do this just on a piece of paper. You can also go to fulfillmentindex.com, which is an internet site with a very easy form to fill in. So this is practice one. Basically, this could give a great universal way of speaking more clearly about how you are. Basically, it gives you language to that question that we very often ask but never get answered. Hey, hello, how are you? Well, this is only just for work. How are you? What is your sense of purpose, pleasure, and vitality? Another practice is that is about our potential. Just the basic question. Given your awareness and what your knowledge is about your potential, what do you have available? How much of that is being used currently in the current situation, in the current company? What does it consist of? What do you need to influence it? What do you promise yourself? What do you request from whom? This also is a very radical question for those who feel a little on the edge of where they are, whether they should be working where they are. It gives a lot of clarity from within to the outside world. This will be a great instrument to use if you wanna talk to your boss, an old word, about your next step in your career. Another one is about the purpose. It hooks a little into what we just had about our fulfillment. It goes a little deeper. What is your purpose of working? Why do you work? Well, and first go to the center column. Where are you now? Why do you work? Do you work for the money, the people, status and ambition, the content development, to contribute to the organization, or to contribute to the customer or the world? Just divide up 100% vertically and see how that shows up now. Also look how it was when you started this job and how you want to influence it. Again, with whom are you going to have the courageous conversation? To begin with yourself first. What is your promise? What is a request to another person? Well, good luck with practice 3. Practice 4, the last one, is about general feedback. And I'm not going to go into the technique of giving feedback. Basically, I'll give you awareness in general in this whole series of sheets about feedback. I want to point out one big courageous conversation and feedback conversation that has not been held, and that is the supportive feedback, where basically it says, oh, continue what you're doing. I like it, I love it, it supports me. So look into your own working life and see, where do you think you can give a supportive feedback, or maybe ask for supportive feedback. I call it the green feedback. There is light corrective feedback, where you say to somebody, hey, my request is that you do it slightly different, do it this way or that. Then a heavy corrective feedback would be, well, change it now, otherwise it's going to go really, really, really bad. And the limiting feedback is, stop it now. In all 4 cases, you can use the let's say the elements that I presented a couple of slides ago, using the courageous conversation, and this will be around giving feedback. Well, thank you so far. So the homework for now is make a supportive feedback each day. Describe the fact, name the impact on you, say what is needed, and ask the other person to continue and wait for the answer. People might want to say, oh, it's my job, and oh, no thanks. Well, I just thanked you. I just thanked you for your attention of listening to this series about courageous conversation. And I really want you to hear that whatever you do with this presentation, and whatever you do outside of the workshop series, the workshop that you took, whatever your opinion is, I hope that you got some percentage of extra entry to your courage, to your language, and to your experience internally to speak to the outside world. So thank you for listening. Speak honorably about yourself, fill in the fulfillment index regularly, and work hard. And I want to finish with a slide which basically sums up a lot what I said here. This is not the age of information. This is not the age of information. So forget the news and the radio and the blurred screen. This is the time of loaves and fishes. And people are hungry, and one good word is bread for 1,000. It's a poem written by David White. It's got a little Christian connotation there, where Jesus handed out fishes and bread, breaking bread, regardless of the Christian tradition around, or the images in this one. It's not about the information. It's not about how and what only. It's about who we are. And I wish you well in spreading your good word, because that's bread for 1,000. Thank you very much. If you want to know more, these are some details to be in touch with me. Thank you so far. Bye-bye.